Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy New Year. Out here in the garage today, a little fire going on the wood stove. I'd like to talk about Lickity Log Splitters, but thought it might um, also be of interest to show some other things I was working on. These old carriage lights are mounted on a house nearby, an older house that they put on either side of a double door on a porch just for looks. They are functional. They were electrified many years ago, and the owners wanted me to replace the wire that was in really bad shape with new wires. So I cleaned them up, did a couple other things we'll talk about here real quick. I think that's even the original brackets. You look at some old buggy pictures or carriage pictures. Anyway, in the process of cleaning them up, whoever did the original electrification did a nice job, because down inside that candle holder, there's a light socket. Fits nice and snug. There's a cardboard sleeve in there. And these were made by the Brewster Company. I Googled it naturally, and they were a carriage manufacturer from New York. So, a couple other items. I got the wires taken care of. This one had a broken glass, and I knew I wasn't going to find the glass. This one was all intact. But the glass is beveled and also has an arch to it. Put that pin back in there. Talk about that in a second. So what I did, I took a piece of scrap plexiglass I had laying around. I put it in a vise and started to squeeze it till it got a bow on it. And then took my heat gun, heated it so it would maintain that shape. A little trial and error, kept squeezing and testing it on here, and got it where it fit. Really, really good. Put a little epoxy around the frame, stuck the plexiglass on there. It needed to be closed up because this was full of moth parts, wings and things down in there, and it didn't look good. Plus, could it catch fire? I don't know, maybe not. But anyway, the little critters will have a harder time getting in there unless they can crawl through some of these vent holes. And I know these aren't original, and I think these rings here, these decorative rings, were copper colored. I think they are copper. The top had some brass parts. This is brass up here. I wasn't about to clean all that off and put it back to, where they were 100 years ago. Anyway, they're ready to go back up. So I fixed that glass, and the last thing I did, to get in there to change a bulb or the candle, you had this little set of pins here. And what that would allow you to do is you could open your lens in the front, change your candle. Now you can use it to change a bulb. And this had a nail in it to keep it closed. So once I had original that I knew I could copy, I took a penny, something I could solder to, cut a couple pieces of coat hanger, made my own. I didn't paint it black yet, but that goes in there. And yeah, I defaced currency. So once I paint it black, no one will ever know that that's not the original. So they're ready to go back up. The main reason for doing this video today, most of you know I had some Lickity Log Splitters, two-speed models, and I sold them last year. And I had an original book that I gave the guy because I was sure, I wasn't worried about it, because one reason I don't have two speeds anymore, and the other, I thought if somebody needs help, I was sure that I had scanned that manual and put it on a thumb drive. I don't have a computer, but I use my wife's laptop. I was sure that I saved a copy. So away goes the manual. And didn't think of it till a few months later. A guy contacts me and must have seen one of the videos that I did. And he said, would you send me a copy of that manual? Yeah, no problem, I responded. And I started to search and I couldn't find it, so I finally had to message him and say, I apologize, I don't know where it's at, I can't find it. Apparently I never scanned it. So a few more months go by, and here the other day my wife says, hey, I think I found that manual you're looking for. She was looking on a thumb drive for something else and came across some Lickity Log Splitter information, and there it was. Also in there were these drawings that I made back in 2010, and I used Microsoft Publisher. The reason I did this, I like to get straight in my mind what happens when I pull that handle and I'm splitting a log. To me, it goes for anything. If you understand how it works, it might help you troubleshoot other things. You got to understand, instead of just pushing a button or pulling a handle, what are you actually doing? So it was more of a hobby, kind of took some of my time to make these, and really what started, I got to give credit where it's due. When I got my first Lickity Log Splitter, I was trying to figure out how it worked, and I worked with a man that was very intelligent, and I described everything. He never even saw a splitter, a log splitter like a Lickity Log Splitter or a 2-speed. And when I explained to him how it worked, he drew a drawing from just me describing. And he was almost spot on. A couple things are not right, but he was very close to having it right. Very smart man. Barry Williams. No longer with us, but he had a respect of many people. Very smart man. Like I said, that's what influenced me to make my drawing on Microsoft Publisher. It all came from his hand drawing, which I keep in my files. That's a little reminder. And so when I found these drawings, of course, I couldn't open them because they were marked .pub like Publisher. I didn't have that program. My wife didn't have it. None of her laptop. So she had a friend that she mentioned it. He goes, yeah, I'll convert them. And he converted them to, I think, JPEGs or something. I'm not sure. But it was something I could mess around with and modify. So that was a big help. So that got me started on making my own drawings. And like I said, it's to me personally, it's interesting to know what's happening when you pull that lever. So we'll go over it real quick. I do have a write-up here. I'm not going to read all of that. But this first one, we'll go in a sequence, like pulling the handle, low pressure, high speed, return of the ram, when it goes into high pressure, low speed, and return of the ram, things like that. So start right out. If your splitter's running, you've started it and it's sitting there running, nothing's going on. You're just warming it up, say. The oil comes through your pump, relief valve, and then you have these Gresson valves. This is one that's called the manual. It's attached to your operating handle. They're simple 2-position valves. A is a common port, and oil's either always going to B or C, one or the other, depending on where you shift your operating handle. The only other valve on the machine is an S100. 3/4 ports, 1-inch ports. Again, A is the common. It's always connected to B or C. Get myself a little pointer here. So, when the pump's running, oil comes up, A is connected to B, oil goes right back to the reservoir, can't make pressure. The rest of this just has oil in it. I do have little arrows in there. Must have had a lot of time in my hands. And this is just sitting here. So this is where your splitter is, handles in the rear position, and you're not trying to split a log. So you move to the next diagram. You've moved your handle forward now. So now this valve, instead of A being connected to B, A is now connected to C. Flows through, goes up here. It's blocked at the auto shifter That crescent is blocked. So now pressure is only one place for it to go. It fills up all these other areas, goes up, and goes in the small area of the ram, the inner tube, and it fills that with oil and pushes the ram forward. And it's going at a pretty good pace, well, the faster speed, because it's only filling a small area. Okay? What also happens, this red area, when these O-rings, if they're in good shape, which they should be, when that moves forward, it's creating a void behind there, but it sucks oil out of the reservoir. The red area, follow that. Remember, it's blocked here. Well, I said it's always connected to B or C. A is connected to B. That's the way it's always connected until it shifts. So it draws oil in behind, because you don't want air to get in there. So that stays full of oil. The yellow's oil. Your ram moves forward. Okay, and go to the next drawing. Let's say there was no need to shift into the high pressure mode. The ram has completed its stroke. You've split that log. It was pretty easy to split. It's hit the trip at the end. These springs underneath, I didn't draw them in there. There's 3 springs underneath your bed that are always pulling that ram, trying to get it to return. So you've tripped. What's happened? This A is now connected to B again, like of course you're at idle, and there's no reason for pressure, so the springs will pull this back, forcing all the oil back down. Follow the arrows, right back through. Now it's everything going back to the reservoir. Also the red area, any oil behind there is getting pushed back. This has never changed. A is still connected to B, and that's going back to your reservoir. So that's your return, kind of your return stroke there. Okay. Now we'll move on to this one. You pulled the handle forward. Instead of being B back to the reservoir, it goes up to C. And I don't have an in-between drawing here, but let's say you're splitting that log. Your ram has traveled out and it's hit a knot, or it's a really tough log to split. Pressure now is going to build. It's going to build inside there. Your auto shifter mechanism, there's a little check valve here and an adjustable orifice. This is going to be under pressure. Oil is allowed to flow into here unobstructed. There's no orifice. It goes right in and overcomes this auto shifter spring. Well, now it has shifted this because its pressure has overcome this spring inside here. So now A is connected to C. So that's pump pressure coming up there. So it blocks from the reservoir. Now there's pump pressure going through here into the larger area and the smaller area. Well, since you have all this volume to fill, it does make more pressure because you have more area pushing, more area for your pressure to build against. So yeah, it'll slow down the ram, but it'll have a lot more pressure. And so that's how that occurs. But this spring in here is trying to always act against the pressure. But if the pressure's too big, that's what shifts that valve. You can see that happen if you have a splitter. So what could happen is, since this spring is always fighting, the pressure could drop to where it wants to shift back to the fast speed, low pressure mode. Well, this check valve is checked here. Once this pressure on this side of the check valve is lower, because it's gotten easier to split, the only place for this pressure to go back that's being pushed by that spring is through this adjustable orifice. That's a very important, probably the most important thing on a splitter. And that's where you get your rate of return to your fast speed. When you're shifting and you hit a knot or a hard spot on the log, you want that's instantaneous. You want that to be a quick shift, just like that, to shift this valve. but the ram could still be moving forward, get through that knot, and say, I'm good. I don't need as much pressure. You want it to come back. That's where your orifice comes in. You can adjust that for the oil to bleed off at a certain rate, and you want it to be maybe, 2-3 seconds. A nice return to where your mechanism will trip back to the fast speed, and when it does, well, now you're back to similar to the first drawing. Your oil gets blocked here. Now oil is, to finish the split, it's only going in the center area at a faster rate, and then it goes back to pulling oil out of the reservoir through the red. That's kind of quick, but hopefully you understand it. I did zoom in on this drawing. Frickin' Jeep would probably understand this, and he might find some things that I did wrong or is not drawn right, because I think he's a pretty sharp guy on hydraulic stuff if you follow his channel. John from frickin' Jeep. But here's just a close-up of what happens. And this is just a little block with a little brass block. It does have an arrow on it, directional arrow. You have to make sure that it's installed in the right direction. I probably have one. I think I have one here somewhere. But that's kind of explains that. You want, when you're shifting back, I think he if you watch frickin' Jeep, he has 2 of these 2 speeds. Pretty interesting. Well, everything he does is interesting, but he had one that was banging a lot. It was like a jackhammer. You don't want that. That to me tells me that this was probably open too far. And if you close that off, and boy, it's minute adjustments. You only want to go maybe a quarter turn, and just keep testing it. And you want a nice couple of second return to the like you split that hard tough log. And when you want it to speed back up, you want it to come back to the fast speed low pressure mode at a nice couple second rate, not too fast. So that's why that's there. I just zoomed in on that part and made my own little drawing so I could explain that there. Once you get that set right, you shouldn't have to mess with it again. And the last thing I'll talk about, they're pretty simple machines. These O-rings here, there's one here on your outer, about 4 1/4 diameter. And then there's another O-ring right in here. I've changed them. I got digging around and I still have some. I don't know why. I'm probably never going to use them again, but I think I have so many because I think I bought them online and you had to buy, 10 or 12 at a time. And they're not very expensive, but that's your outer O-ring. I think it's called a Dash 425, and then I won't take these out, but these are the smaller ones. Look like about 2 inch, 2 1/4. That's on the inside there. Right there. And some of these other ones, they might have been. I also had the shifter, the auto shifter part, because one of my videos I had that spring broke. And there are some small O-rings inside there. If you can take it all apart, again, I don't think they wear out very often, but so that's my spiel on 2-speed Lickity Log Splitters for today. I'm glad I found these. It was a nice trip down memory lane. I enjoyed owning these machines. I'm still amazed at some of the things that were incorporated into a machine that was basically patented in 1959. Instead of having a 2-stage hydraulic pump, he was able to achieve 2 different speeds and having a shifting mechanism that filled 2 different chambers with oil. And the other thing was, I see it's showing up now on Wolf Ridge and Easton Made. They're putting electronic throttles on their splitters, at least the vertical ones. And this guy did it mechanically. He had a cable that went from the operating handle, ran around to the carburetor, a bracket on the side of the engine that would speed up the engine when you pulled the handle forward. Simple but effective. Like I said, I don't own these 2 speeds anymore. I moved on, and Bought a 17 VS. I really enjoy it. And matter of fact, the electronic throttle on that, I don't know the last time I ever sped it up. I start it, it sits there at the low speed, and that's where I leave it. I'm not a speed demon on cycle times and all that kind of stuff, you know. I split wood, I go out for a couple hours, and I'm not worried about how much I get done. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions, leave a comment. That's fine with me. I'll respond. And if the guy that was looking for the manual, if you see this, send me an email, and hopefully I can find that electronic. I'm sure I can now. I think my wife made me make a couple of other spots where it can be stored electronically, so we don't go through that again. So if you're still interested, or I can help you in any way, shoot me an email or leave a comment, and I'll catch up with you. And hopefully you still have the machine. If I was able, I would have kept one, but I just at this point I have no reason to keep all these splitters around. I still have the single speed that was my father's. I will always have that. Matter of fact, if it warms up anytime soon, I might drag it out and start it up, let it run for a while. That's still my probably my favorite machine. Of the Lickity Log Splitters, it's a single speed, and I don't know what the cycle time is. It's probably 12 or 14 seconds. But it's done that for, well, I haven't used it for the past, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. But up until that point, it got used regularly and hard, and split a lot of wood. Great machines. I think the downfall was when my father bought his 1971. I think it was $900. I have the receipt somewhere. So going by today's economy, that's similar to about $7,000 today. And that's about right. But a lot of money back then, but you know what, it's still going. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Hi, Frank.